Reggie.
T.
Here we are again.
Wow.
Two men, one man, two man, and a stool. We'll
Two
talk
men
about the
and a
other guy over
stool.
there in a minute.
Hold up. What you mean 2 men and a stool?
2 men and a stool. Intriguing, informative, thought-provoking, and exciting.
I call that edutainment.
Yeah.
I call it edutainment.
If you're gonna use edutainment, we gotta tell people what that means.
Well, I think that when we think about schools, I'll put in the analogy of schools. There are a lot of kids that go to school for the education, but they also come to school because they want to have fun.
I remember that.
And so from my perspective, what we're doing should not just be educational, and it should not just be entertainment. But why can't we have fun while we're learning?
Got it.
And I think that's the way schools ought to be.
Got it.
Let's have fun while we're learning. Not when we're just playing sports, but in the classroom. It ought to be fun. I ought to enjoy learning.
So what we like to do on this particular podcast, and we'll talk about why we call it a podcast, we like to highlight all the positive stuff that's going on in education. And then we also like to expose the bad stuff.
That's
Not
right.
in a way where we're beating up people about what
That's
they're
right.
doing, but people need to know some of the bad stuff that's going on. But we like to make sure we stay on the affirmative, on the good stuff that's going on. So we really hadn't figured out whether to call this a podcast or a talk show. So sometimes it's gonna be a pod show, and sometimes it's gonna be a talk cast. So today we got what we call. Well, let's do a talk cast today.
Well, but before we do, Tony, I don't know if we need to label it. I think the audience will label whether or not it's a talk show sometimes or whether it feels like a podcast.
Got it.
But we're going to bring them the same energy and excitement every time, especially when we introduce our guest and one of our favorite guests today.
So when we go back to all those listeners that viewed at the last show, our first show, and we asked them, we're gonna start asking them, is this a talk show or is this a podcast?
That's right.
So we're gonna give them a chance to make the final decision.
But we also want them to say, this is edutainment. I'm gonna stay with that. This is edutainment.
So Reggie, most of our guests or the viewers, they've already figured out we don't have no problem speaking
That's
for
right.
ourselves.
That's right.
You've talked about who you are. I've talked about who I am on the last show. But the stool, our poor stool, our third person on the set, can't talk for itself. So one of us gonna have to take the liberty to tell everybody what role does the stool play in this whole podcast.
I'll start it off, and I'm sure, as we talk to our audience and our work, it really represents our work around the country, the work around culture and climate. But when we think about success in schools, we know most people, when they think about schools or education, whether that's K through 12, college level, what have you, we think about curriculum, we think about lessons, we think about lesson plan, we think about instructions, we think about testing. But we say, in order to really have success, there are some things you must build in your school before. And so if I can just briefly talk about what this stool represents, 2 men and a stool. What we're saying is this is the success of schools.
The top.
It's the top part, exactly.
Okay.
Success. Now, we say based on culture and climate, there are 3 legs to that. And so the first leg represents the school, the building, those things that the principal, the classroom. But let's take specifically when we think about the culture and climate of the school.
Okay.
That's what that principal does. That's what the staff, the senior leadership, the administration does to set the tone.
Got it.
How do we build that high-performing culture and climate in the building?
Got it.
And then when you go to the classroom, that same leg, because the principal can do all these wonderful things, but that teacher also has to build
Got it.
a high-performing culture and climate in that classroom.
One leg.
Regardless, that's one leg,
That's the first
regardless
leg.
of what you're teaching.
Okay.
The second leg is the home. And I think what schools are saying, the home. Or we can talk about parents. We know there are grandparents, guardians. There are other
Aunties,
uncles, aunties.
big brothers, yeah.
But when you send this child to school, we are saying, give us somebody that we can, in other words, have that child come to school ready to learn. In other words, what are those things you're doing in your home?
Yeah.
To set the environment. So when that child comes to school, he or she know the purpose.
Wow.
He or she is on grade level in terms of reading, that you've also done those things. So the second leg is
2 legs.
building up the high-performing culture and climate in the home.
You still can't stand just got 2 legs, right?
Right, because see, if one of those legs, because if you just had 2 legs, that's still some students. The analogy would be that may be some students that are going to be successful. But when we're talking about all schools and all students being successful, that third leg is how do we get that student, regardless of socioeconomic, to get turned on to living? In other words, if I know my purpose for going to school and I'm dealing with those social emotional factors, or if I'm dealing with those non-cognitive variables, and then I'm coming to school, if I know my purpose of school and I have that resiliency and that grit, then I can learn. I can do the things that are necessary in that building. So now I'm not coming to school with foolishness. So now when you think about success in schools, specifically the culture and climate, now academics, teaching and learning becomes a byproduct. It becomes easier for us to do. And so our focus in our organization, the Foundation for Educational Success, is around that three-legged stool. That three-legged stool. Thus, 2 men
And a stool.
and a stool.
Right. So when we talk about building capacity around the country, and how do 2 men take this stool on the road? And people have always challenged us. They said, Reggie, Tony, y'all can't go to every state in the United States doing the work that you all like doing. How you all gonna build capacity? We get that question all the time. And we said, we finally figured it out. We said, we got to go to the network. We got to go to the airwaves. We got to go to the social media. We got to take this message across the country through the best outlet that we have available to us right now, so people can hear more about the importance of this thing called the three-legged stool. You're talking about the parent, the student, and that high-performing culture and climate. And you're talking about that high-performing culture and climate. I got to go ahead and let you know that we got one of the most dynamic principals in the metropolitan Atlanta area. And I'm not saying that because we know him personally. I know him because I like visiting his school.
You talk about that all the time.
Oh man, every
we
time
go
I
there,
go
but you're
there,
always talking
let me
about
tell
that
you
particular school.
That
One of the
school,
schools you love going
that
to.
school
Why?
over there.
Why do you like going there, Tony?
It is so exciting. It's a lot of energy over there. They're over there having a good time. And I'm not even talking about the students. I'm talking about the teachers and the staff. They all over there with smiles. It's almost like I'm gonna date myself a little bit. You remember the show called Fantasy Island?
Yeah.
When the tattoo used to come up and say the plane,
the plane.
It's like every time you go over there, it's like they already set up a fantasy for you because they're having such a good time. So when I look at this young man, who's the third man for today, and we look at his success in this thing around education and building this high performing culture and climate, we had a chance to go over and do work with him at his school. There's a quote: "If I can look at your zip code and I can tell whether you're going to get a good education or not." And that was made by Condoleezza Wright. When you heard that statement, Larry, Mr. Guilford, principal extraordinaire, this statement actually broke you down. Tell us about that statement and why it did what it did to you that day.
But I'm gonna add this when you tell us about that statement. Bring yourself, introduce yourself and how that came about as part of this introduction, because we've been talking about you. So please go ahead, Mr. Gifford.
All right. First, man, thank you all for having me on today. Like I said, Mr. Guilford, principal at Sylvan Hills Middle School in Atlanta. Just excited about the work that we've been doing, but how it came about with you all. Just trying to get that opportunity going into my first year as a principal. Wanted to make sure that my focus was in the right area. So we talked about the high performing culture and climate and getting that started. And that was one of the things that we talked about during our sessions when you all were working with me, trying to build that vision and mission out. And that became a very intense time because I'm just a pillar of, I don't care where you're from or what zip code, area code, wherever. If you have the right people in place and pushing you, you can do whatever it is that you need to do and meet whatever goals, dreams you have. So to have that quote from Condoleezza Rice just brought that out on me, saying, no, it doesn't matter. And one of the activities that I remember us doing that just wanted to show everyone was had teachers from those zip codes that we serve stand up and then saying, hey, she did it. So don't come in here, teacher, administrator, myself, and say that these kids are not capable of doing it because of where they from. So that was big for me. So that part kind of set off the beginning of the year because we did that during pre-planning, and I think that set the tone for them understanding my focus, where I was at, and my belief in what the kids and students.
Let me say something. Let me say my brief memory. And I know you're laughing at me. You know what I'm about to say. But I think people need to understand sometimes we all show various emotions in various ways on what we really care about.
Right.
But I'm reminded, if you could, I want to share a little bit around your journey. But the context of that is we've known you. First of all, I just want to say I didn't know you owned a pair of jeans.
I didn't either.
I've never seen you with jeans on. Every time I see you,
but there's a message to that.
What's the message?
I mean, when I talked to Larry before, I said, "Why you wear a suit to school every day?"
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
And for us to see him here with these jeans and this blazer on is something totally out of his norm. But let's tell the audience, because I think it's value added.
Right.
Your reason why you say you wear a suit to school every day.
Just going back to like we talked about, I can just remember my first year moving into leadership. My principal was just saying, as you continue to matriculate up, you want to make sure that you are having a certain aroma about yourself as you're moving in leadership, especially when you're setting that tone. So coming in, that was the thing. I wanted to make sure I was always dressed, make sure that our students see.
That's the point I wanted you to get to, because you were trying to dance around. I was going to bring it out. Well, you said, I know these guys don't never see a man in a suit. So every time I put a suit on, every time I walk in this building, go ahead, I'm sorry, Larry.
When this is over 20-something years of knowing you, I want to tell you. So I decided to put jeans on too, since you told me you were wearing jeans.
Yes. But then I go back to now where we, of course, with our district, we changed the dress code where staff can wear jeans throughout the week. But the other part is one of our things in our what we call Sylvan Ready. The last part in the Ready acronym is why. Unequivocally you. We always talking to our students about being you.
Right.
So I want my students, my staff, to see me in this set as well, dress code as well, so they're comfortable in whatever it is, long as it's within the dress code, being comfortable. Our staff being comfortable, because you all said something earlier about purpose and being excited about coming to school.
That's right.
But let me go back. Let me digress just a little bit, because I want to stay on, and I know you probably tried to get me to, you thought maybe I forgot, but I didn't. Tony, I think he thought I forgot. So here you are, former football player, coach.
Big guy.
I think running back, fullback.
Yeah, running back.
And college, played in college.
Right.
And the first time we said that to you, you had some big old tears coming out of your eye, and it was such an emotion.
The Condoleezza Rice statement.
The Condoleezza Rice statement really bothered
Yeah.
you in a way. And the context, I want you to just talk just a couple of minutes or so about why that moved you. I understand why you said it moved you, but now just share with you the context of how you were raised, and it was just something you said to your staff. And I said, oh man, we have the leader, and all of us have been in various leadership positions, but your staff, I watched your staff when they saw the leader of our school. He's revealing who he is, and he's showing that passion he has for his students. So if you would, tell us what really caused you, not just the statement, it was something that provoked you to say, that tears started coming
What
out.
you trying to do, make him cry today?
Yeah, a little bit. No, really, if you would. Go ahead, Larry, if you would, share.
No, just those opportunities growing up the way I have, in those same type of settings, being told that you wouldn't make it, being told that you wouldn't make it to this level, whether it was in sports, you would never make it to college, those things, and being counted out because of where I was from or what was going on in my particular area. So I wanted to make sure people understood that. And I always say that to my kids, I can't change everything that goes on outside of our school address, but I can make it where this is important to you all and that you all are in a safe place. So I just really, when we talked about that emotion part, I just really wanted everyone to understand, like, that means something to me. Like, these kids, even the staff, like I said, it's not just the students, it's the staff as well. That's important, man. Like, it's a lot of stress, and we dealing with a lot of stuff in the world right now.
That's right.
But I want people to appreciate when they come in. I don't want them stressed out, staff or students. Whatever went on before, I always look like an athlete. Michael Jordan always said that was his safe haven on that court. So whatever was going on outside. So that emotion was me showing my staff like, no, our kids are capable of doing it.
Wow.
I was one of those kids. You were one of those kids. We got plenty of students from our areas that are being successful. And I just wanted them to truly feel what I felt like. No, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it fun. We're gonna enjoy it. We're gonna do a little dance. We're gonna do a little music. But the business is gonna be about these kids growing and moving, and that was important. And just getting that message across what really let out some of that emotion.
Well, Reggie, I'm sorry, Reggie,
No,
but
no,
when you
go
talk
ahead,
about
sir.
having fun, I got mad at you earlier this year when I came over. I think it was about 2 weeks. Y'all had been open, and you pull out your camera, you showing me all this stuff y'all got going on. You got food trucks. You got your teachers out in the middle of the atrium doing the electric slide, all forms of it, and they having a ball. And then he talking about all these of my teachers that came back from last year because you don't have turnover.
Right.
Because people like coming in your building. They like the culture and the climate. They also like the structure. Because you're not just by yourself. You got some you got some grunts for some APs that don't mind getting on the hall as well. So talk about creating that environment and making teachers feel good, food trucks and getting sponsors to come over because some of those resources are not in the community. So you have to do what? Go out and bring those communities, those resources to you.
Nah, that's huge, and we always try to be creative. We know we in the Falcons land, rise up is our theme. So that would be in our theme. Going back to you all working with me my first year as a principal, creating those visions, missions, and themes. This year we talked about rising up, and we already know that the Falcons are doing good this year. But we said let's have it a football theme, a tailgate. So we set up our foyer, nice building, set it up with tents and all of these things. We got a teacher that's a DJ. We asked him to DJ, and we just set up in the foyer, and we had a good time.
Wasn't no kids nowhere.
No kids nowhere. No. And as a principal, I got on the grill because I enjoyed that. So I grilled out for the staff, and we listened to music, and now we handled our business.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute,
yeah.
wait a
Oh,
minute.
yeah.
Only thing
And we didn't get
wait a
an
minute,
invite.
Tony. We
I'm
didn't
gonna
get an
tell you.
invite.
That's
That
the problem.
first of all, but
Okay.
we're supposed to be one of your partners. I'm not talking about boys. I'm saying we're supposed to be one of your partners.
We probably paid for one of the food trucks, Reggie.
Well, we have paid for something like that before, but I don't know why we didn't get invited. But seriously, I want to understand, what does having a DJ, you cooking and doing all those things, put that in the context of why you did it as it relates to culture and climate or as it relates to teaching and learning. Because the business of school is teaching and learning.
Right.
Why those type of things in the context of creating that high-performing culture and climate?
Two things. He's going back to what you said at the beginning: purpose and having fun. People want to know that they have a purpose, a reason for going, a purpose for doing this work, and they want to have fun doing it. You all are doing this pod show.
Don't worry about it. We'll get
That's
back
right.
to it.
We'll get it right. We'll call it a pod show for now. That's fine.
There you go. There you go.
Well, y'all having fun doing this. So I'd say that's the same way with teaching and learning. There's nothing to say you got to be so serious while you're teaching and learning or while the kids are learning. Things can be engaging, fun at the same time. And that's what we try to strive for. But even going back to talking about retention and so forth, like I do little stuff like that, grilling. I want them to see I don't mind getting my hand dirty for you. I walk around and I pick up little pieces of paper or trash on the ground because I want them to see your principle of mine. And then you begin to get people seeing that, and now they're saying, okay, I can do that. Or me leading a PL or me leading a staff meeting. It's not about that. So they start seeing those things. And like you said, that retention go down from my first year having to hire 35 to last year only had to hire 8 people. And hopefully, and some of them are promotions, but hopefully even lower than this because I want to keep on retaining those staff. And that's big for us. So just having that opportunity to do those things in front of staff and show them that I'm not too big, even as the principal. But I want to make sure we all know the title don't mean anything to me. Let's get this work done for these kids.
One of the things I saw in your school is that it's something that Tony and I train on when we're talking to people about the whole thing about delegating, checking, and supervising.
Right.
As a principal, I watch how you have
Yes.
shared leadership and how you have empowered
Right.
your subordinate leaders. You set a criteria for what the expectations are. And when you do that, I just watch how your staff, and not just yours, successful schools around the country,
Right.
when they create that high-performing culture and climate,
Yeah.
it starts with that leadership does matter. And if you set that tone, which you've done, and then your assistant principals create and follow through with that same environment, but also watch your so many teachers in their classroom. They're the CEO, for lack of a better word, in their classroom. You watch that regardless of what you're teaching. I am the chief executive officer in this classroom to create that high-performing culture and climate. So we want to get back to, because I don't think you said it earlier, because you sound like a seasoned principal, and you're not you're seasoned. I don't know how long it takes.
The only reason he's not seasoned because the first time we met this young man, he told us, "I'm going to be a principal." Yeah. So he's been working all of his life to get to this point. So he probably had so much stuff stored up. On top of the fact, he said, "When I get my school, Tony, the first thing I need to do is culture and climate. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything else before we get that culture and climate right. After that, I can build on that. But I need to make sure I got that foundation."
But we got to call. You got to call.
Oh.
And then you called me.
Oh,
So Reggie, you're
yeah.
not going to believe who called me, because I was this close to writing him off. But I was that close, but not literally. But I was like, go ahead, Tony. You remember that?
I remember it almost like it was yesterday because we had just had a conversation. Man, we ain't heard from Larry in a long time.
Long time.
We got a tag name for him. We won't say that on the
broad.
We're not going to say that.
That's right.
So we ain't heard from Larry in a long time. I said, yeah, we ain't heard from him. He's probably doing some great things. That ain't what I said, but that's what I'm thinking in my mind.
Right.
And about maybe 2 or 3 days later, Larry comes, "Hey, look, I got my school, man." And he also said, "I'm ready to do this culture and climate thing. What y'all got? Yeah. Come on over here and tell me what it looks like." Because that's where I'm starting. I'm not doing anything until I build this foundation for educational success. So we're so happy that you thought it wasn't robbery, and you also saw that work in other schools and said, "I got to do this first." And that makes more sense to us than anything in this world. And it's not just, we talked about the fun, we talked about the good times, we talked about the grilling, but you also got standard operating procedures. You got everybody in the building know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and how long they're supposed to be there. So that makes a big difference because nobody's asking, what am I supposed to be doing? Yeah. Because you had rehearsal. I told you up front. No, everybody saw when I told you this is your position during arrival. This is your position during lunch. So Larry, Mr. Guilford, I'm gonna stop calling you Larry on our Talkcast pod show. Until, but one of the things we want to say is, that we're so proud of the fact that we can come over there and use you as a flagship for the work around the country. We can also come over there and say, hey, look, you want to see a staff that's having a good time. You want to see a staff that's involved. If you want to see a staff that's totally engaged, 3 weeks ago, you sent me a hashtag for Instagram. And I opened that up, and on that Instagram, Larry, describe what I saw on that. I don't even want to steal your glory.
So talking about building capacity, what you all talked about too, is trusting your staff and letting them be who they are, finding out what some of their skill sets are. One of our new teachers, we found out, rap. And our theme for homecoming was "They Not Like Us." So I'm not knowing. They done made a whole rap song, went in the studio, called me in the office over the radio. They was like, "We need you to come to the office." Come in the office, and they like, "Listen to this." And it starts rapping "They Not Like Us" with throwing the Sylvan Hills and about taking scores and doing the right thing and all of this. And I looked at,
hold up, you said something about scores. Say that again.
By scores, academics, making sure that.
See, I think that's important.
Yes,
when you talk about scores, this wasn't homecoming just about football. This was about academics.
This is about talking about behavior in the rap, academics, doing the right thing in and outside of school, all of that, teachers performing. All of that is what they was talking about. And one of my new teachers was in there. I didn't know. And I said, wait a minute. I said, is that you rapping? And she was like, yes. And then she showed me another one at another county that she did when the superintendent was in the video and everything. And I was like, we got to do this. We got to do this for our school. And they made a whole video with social media.
Is it still available on social media?
Yeah, I saw it on. I think I saw it on Instagram.
It's on Instagram, and they released the video at a certain time, like you do with an album, man. And I think by that next morning, they released the video like at 7, 8 o'clock that night. By that next afternoon, 12, we already had over 10,000 views on it. Yep. But it's showcasing students, showcasing our culture and climate that you all helped to build for us, and it's been awesome, man.
So let me ask you something, Larry, and that is, let's stay with me. If we think about this first leg, the building, the culture and climate, I want to not push back, but I want to continue a little bit more on that. What exactly did you do? Obviously, we were there coaching. We did a lot of the professional learning to get to that point.
Right.
But I want you to, if you were talking to first year, second year, some mature principals, but people just starting in this work, what exactly does that mean? Because sometimes people would ask us in the past, like when you, as an example, Tony, you remember when we look at school improvement plans? And school improvement plan has about 95% that's focused on teaching and learning. Yes. And then when we ask about culture and climate, people don't know how to explain it. They don't know how to train on it. But yet it is so critical. But when we ask the question, is culture and climate as important as curriculum and instruction? We always get yes. It's just that some people say it's more important.
What's the evidence? And
we always say, what's the evidence? Because if your school improvement plan has 5% on culture and climate, I'm going there.
What's the question?
I'm going there. I'm going there. At the point that I'm making on it, though, Larry, before Tony started talking, the point on that I'm making on it, if your focus, obviously the purpose of school is teaching and learning, what did you do that created specifically, be specific as it relates to a first year principal, new principals creating that culture and climate? What did you do? Because it didn't happen through happenstance.
No, I think just really, and I know I came in, was named the principal in the middle of a school year, so I had a half a semester, but just kind of assessing everything, assessing what was going on in different parts of the building, assessing what was going on in the classroom, assessing what was going on with parent engagement, looking at all of that, and finding out what was important, what could we make changes, not coming in doing too much. And I think all that helped with leading to that high performing culture and climate. Being a courageous leader, because some leaders are, scared.
So you think that move you made with culture and climate was courageous?
Yes.
More so than being a new principal?
Yes. Especially coming in on pre-planning as a new principal and saying, I'm going to bring in these gentlemen from Foundational Educational Success, and we're going to start off with focusing on culture and climate. And that was different. And they told me that was different. Like some of the people, like I said, because I brought in 35 that first year, 35, and they said I hadn't been to nowhere that focused on culture and climate the first thing when we walked in. And they understood that that was important, because I don't care how much content knowledge you have, any of that. If the kids, the culture is not right, you can't teach the kids anything, or I don't want to say anything. You're not going to get out everything that you can from those students. Right. So just coming in and doing those things was extremely important for us. And I think that has helped. I was talking to a parent who had a question about our academics, and I showed her on one of the, how they evaluate schools. And in it said we're like one of the 7th, 8th highest schools as far as academic growth in the state. So kids might come to us at a certain level, but we're growing students, and that's what it's all about. And we're going to grow them having fun with it. We're going to grow them with our staff enjoying being in the building, and we're going to have a good time doing it. But that's all about that culture and climate that you all helped me establish through all the activities we did during those sessions where we sparred with each other, and I was ready to kick you all out. Matter of fact, I think I may have kicked you all out of my building one day because y'all made me so mad. But that helped me to shape where we are now, and to continue to do that work around high performing culture and climate. I think we're gonna, in my second year, this is my second year, I think we're gonna have some pretty Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I really did kick them out for you all. That's out there. I wanted you to know, yeah, because you all had to made me mad, and I had enough of you all. But I appreciate the push you all would give me.
We were very pushy.
Yes, you all.
Well, Larry, we think one of the things that you've mastered based on that statement from Condoleezza Rice about the zip codes, you mastered this thing called serenity. Because that statement also has research to support the fact that that's true. We're going to talk more about that. Reggie and I are going to talk more about that. Okay. But serenity says, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. I can't change what area, I can't change what this school is, but give me the courage to change the things that I can. And the things that I can change is what happens when those kids cross the threshold of this middle school. And that's what you've mastered. And you've also said, and the wisdom to know the difference. I know the difference. I got the courage to do the right thing. Serenity says, I can't change where this school sits, but I can make this a paradise right here in the neighborhood where it is. So we commend you. We thank you for the work that you're doing. We hope that more principals will look at this talkcast and say to themselves, I need to get in touch with that guy right there.
This pod show. But Tony, you talked about the serenity part. There's nothing I can do about changing this in the case of Larry. But you also said he has the courage to keep going. He talked about courageous conversation, being a courageous leader. But what you didn't do is talk about that wisdom where some schools and some leaders get it confused. In other words,
They give up.
They give up or they focus so much time on
Academic.
negativity or things they can't do anything about. They allow it to be cancerous inside a building. And when we say leadership matters, that's what you're talking about. We can't do anything about this zip code, but what we can do is create that high-performing culture and climate. So I'm going to worry about, as you like to say, the things I can fix, the things that's within my power. I can't worry about what the district is doing and whether or not they're giving me this or whether we have more resources. So I think that's
But I can't get
clarity.
sponsors. I get other people to come in and help me with this process.
I can help
they
myself.
Won't tell me no, right?
And I can
help myself.
My teachers and I can fix these kinds of things.
So as we bring this particular one to a close, Larry, we like to say thank you for being on with us, and we're going to grant you the last words on the way out of here, because when you think about this process and where you are right now, and the younger principals that we're hoping looking at the Larry Guilfords of the world and say, hey, look, I got to start with culture and climate. I got to start with culture and climate. So, as an out, what would you like to say to those new principals that are less than 2 years?
Right. Now, I just say to just take your time, understand what's important, and keep the main thing the main thing. Like, we already know that we gotta. At the end of the day, I know I gotta improve these scores. I gotta make sure students are growing. I gotta make sure that our scores are showing the work that we put in. So we already know that part. But we also got to understand, and that's when I talk about that courageous piece and that high performing and that coaching and climate you all talk about. We also know we're life changers as well. So yeah, I can help a kid academically, but if I can help a kid socially and emotionally, then that's going to get them even further in life than that academic piece. So we want to make sure that we put all that in place, and you gotta trust what you're doing with that work, and trust this type of work that you all are doing with the schools, because it's made I can only speak for my school. It's made a tremendous difference. And we talk about the standard operating procedures 2 years, and we're still doing those things. We still have them in place and so forth. And it makes life so much easier for us. It makes life so much easier for me. I can remember, and this is my last one, you all saying, no, you got to make sure you hold people accountable for coming in on whatever time it is. And I can remember we talked about it, and we talked about it in the pre-planning. And then a couple weeks, months, maybe y'all came back and y'all saw someone come in. And this me being comfortable in myself and dealing with my consultants from Foundational Education Success. Y'all said somebody came in after the time that you're supposed to. How are you addressing that? And that put it in the perspective, like, if you're going to build this high performing culture and climate, you got to start with addressing things like that. We want kids have expectations. The teachers want them to have expectations. I got to have expectations of my staff and hold them accountable, just like we hold the students.
The last time I visited Larry Building, and we always talk about the fact how orderly everything is.
Right.
I'm walking in, we side by side, the kids in line, everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing. All of a sudden I hear like, hey! Then they look at me and say, you got to do that sometime. Because I'm looking around, I'm thinking about myself, everything perfect.
Yes, you just gotta let them know sometimes. I'm paying attention to everything. Yes, I'm still there. They wasn't doing absolutely nothing in the cafeteria.
Hold up, they were doing
Nothing. I'm talking about perfect in the cafeteria.
Everything
It was
was
lunch.
good.
Everything. Teacher was on point. Kids were in line. Everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing. I'm walking. It scared me because we're walking side by side. He just out of nowhere. Hey!
Little boy may have just moved left just too much. And all of them scared the devil out of all of them. But like you say, it's just one of those things.
Looked at me smirking. You got to do that sometimes. I said, this kid to learn too much from us.
You know, kids are funny. They'll make you laugh. Larry, I think we told you all three of us are bald headed, obviously.
Oh yeah, milk dud.
But the kids sometimes call us the Milk Dud Twins. What are some of the other names they've called?
They call you a box of milk duds. Yeah, because that's when Larry was over there with us one time.
Right.
They said, all them bald head guys. What happened to their hair?
I hope they don't cut their hair like that. Man, I'm like, look at these kids. They are hilarious.
Yeah, no, they fun. We have a good time with our students. And one thing about kids, they gonna say whatever.
Oh, you don't remember the little girl that walked up to her, and I had to tell you what she was doing. She said, "Hey, Principal Larry Guilford." I said, Larry, she trying to get away with calling you by your first name.
You know I wasn't going for that, calling me by my first name.
They're slick. They try to be slick anyway.
She said,
But you have to love them.
Hey, Principal Larry Guilford.
Nah, we have a good time, man. Like I say, I try to make sure those kids, our students, man, they have a great time. Like they wanna come to the building. That's
the point right there.
yeah, and that's big. They want to come to Sylvan Hills Middle School, and we try to do a big job. Like I laugh with them, I joke with them, but they understand.
Hey.
It's not a show. You can come over there any day of the week.
It's
It
the
doesn't
same
matter.
thing.
It's
It doesn't matter.
same.
It's the same
Thus,
thing.
everybody understand it's not a show.
Yeah, all day, every day.
Well, Tony, before we close out, I want you to talk about. No, I want you to answer something because I mean it's what Mr. Guilford, what Larry just mentioned, and that is he needs to be an immediatist. I want you to explain what that is, and when we're training, when we're talking to people, what an immediatist is. Then I want to go ahead and close out.
Well, there was a guy that was a abolitionist with Frederick Douglass that talked about the fact that he looked at slavery almost like if your house is burning down and your wife and your daughter's in there, and he said maybe we'll get to that later, as opposed to saying no, that's a situation I need to deal with immediately.
Yes.
I can't wait for that. He saw that the same way he saw slavery. Oh, we can't wait for slavery just to wear off. We got to deal with this immediately. So he said, there's a word that you won't find in the dictionary. You became what we call an immediatist. You said, let's do this now because we can't wait. Right. Because in order for us to make those test scores, to make those grades, to get that high performing culture and climate, we got to do it now. I can't wait until later. Or first I got to go and let the staff get to know me and all of those things. They're going to get to know me through this process. Right. So we appreciate you doing this. We're going to close out. We're going to get out of here because we can talk to you all night. We'll keep you all day.
Yeah, we know you got other things. And the context of that, Tony, I think it was just critical that you explained that when we think of schools, you're an immediatist because you want those test scores to happen right now. So I'm not going to let toxic behavior come in my school. So I'm going to address it right now because if you don't, it starts spreading. It becomes cancerous. And I think that's really what the context of creating a high-performing culture and climate is. Right. You must be an immediatist to address these things so teaching and learning will happen as a natural, innate part of what we do in our school, and it becomes infectious now that everybody gets it on creating that high-performing culture and climate in the school.
Oh man, I wish I could. There's more that we can do with Larry. Maybe we'll bring him back if he'd like to come back. But we like to make sure we stay informative, stay intriguing, stay thought-provoking. And of course, this has totally been exciting, Larry.
Yeah.
We want to thank you for the time that you spent with us. We know you're out of uniform, but you're also in uniform because your kids used to, even when you're out of uniform, you're going to make sure it's in the school's colors. So we thank you for being here. We can't say thank you enough. We enjoyed the time we spent with you, and welcome back anytime you'd like to.
And so on behalf of the Foundation for Educational Success and 2 men and a stool, I can't say nothing but thank you, brother. Thank you for the work you're doing. You're not only teaching and learning, you're saving lives. And I just want to say thank you.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you all, man. Appreciate
you.
No, appreciate you all, man.
Much love.
For sure.